Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorials, we provide workshops and exercises to learn about AWS services. These workshops and exercises are published to our website aws-dojo.com. Today, we are going to talk about how you can use tag-based access control in a lake formation to control access to data lake resources. This is a new feature which has been released in AWS Lake Formation, and this feature is going to help people manage their data lake permissions at scale. So let's talk about it. So before we talk about the feature, let's understand how does the whole configuration inside, how do the whole access configuration inside lake formation works. So when you are setting up a data lake using lake formation, actually you will have your data sources. Now your data sources could be in S3 bucket, or it could be in Redshift, or any kind of relational database, JDBC endpoint. Your data sources could be dispersed across different types of data stores depending on the nature of the data. Now, these data sources are then cataloged in your data lake. So you do cataloging of the data so that your data is searchable and discoverable and queryable. And then after that, you start assigning access permissions for these individual tables and databases in the data catalog. So for setting up the permission, you provide permission at the user or identity label. So either it could be an IAM user or any kind of federated identity, or it could be IAM group. You provide access control to these principals, and generally these principals are used by the end user who wants to query this data from the data lake, or who wants to see their reports or dashboard fetching data from the data lake. Then you also provide these access permissions to IAM role, and IAM roles are primarily used by other AWS services, like being the glue job or glue crawler or EMR or Lambda, and they are primarily for processing your data or like in case of crawler, it is trying to generate the schema of the data. So this is how the access permission works inside data lake, where you have your data catalog defined, and then you provide access control to your IAM users or federated users or IAM group or IAM role, and then these principals then they access data for their own purpose. So having understood how the access permission works within lake formation, let's try to see how does the resource level access permission works, and why it is a tedious job. So when I say resource level access permission, the resources which I'm talking about within the data lake are your databases, your tables, and the columns in the table. So generally what happens that you have a data lake and then you create one resource. Now again, as I mentioned, resource could be a table, database, or a column. Then what you do once you create the resource, you provide access for that resource. So you might have like several users, and you can say, okay, these users can read the data, this user can read and write both, these users can have only access on the following number of columns, and these users will not have access at all. Yeah, and by default everyone does not have access actually. And then you keep repeating it. You add more resource, more resource, you grant access. You add more resource and you grant access. So that's how your resource level permission works, which looks very nice. It works very nice, but think of it that you have got like hundreds of such databases with thousands of tables and columns, and you have to maintain their access for say hundreds of your users or thousands of your users. then it starts looking very tedious. It starts looking little unmanageable, because if every time you create a resource, every time you update a resource, or you want to update the access of the resource, you have to grant resource level access for all the IAM users, groups, and roles which are principals which are using the data lake. So resource level permissions becomes a difficult task to manage if your number of databases and tables and users are very large. And this is the problem which actually tag-based access control tries to solve. So let's understand how tag-based access control actually simplifies this whole operation, or this whole access management. So in tag-based access control, what you do is that you define your policy tag. So you will come to know some new terms which probably you have not heard in the Lake Formation earlier, because as I told you, these are some very new features which came into the AWS Lake Formation. So you define your policy tags in your Lake Formation. Your policy tags are simple key value pairs, okay? And I'll show you example, and then also there is a hands-on lab towards the end which will give you full experience of how to configure it. So you define your policy tags, which is nothing but a simple key value pairs. Then what you do that you give data permissions on these policy tags. So you can simply say that, okay, these key value pairs will have, for these following type of key value pairs based data resources, the following IAM users or group will have access. For the other key value pair based resources, I will have some other access. And this task you do once, okay? So you define your policy tags and you define data permission on the policy tags. This task it could be a very big task, because if you have like large number of databases, large number of tables, large number of users, then it could be quite a lengthy task to complete. But you can do it once, or you do it only when your policy tags are changing, or if your users are changing, yeah, then you do it. It's not per resource. You do it like kind of one go, or whenever, as I mentioned, whenever policy tags changing, user changing, then you do it. So it's like less frequently changed configuration, you do it. And after that, what you do that in data lake, you start creating your resources, but this time you make a difference. When you start creating your resources, you attach policy tags to them. So at the time of creation of your resource, you attach the policy tag. And what happens based on the policy tags, like now policy tags are now attached with a data permission, and based on the policy tag attached, these resources will have permissions enforced. Okay, so the way the whole operations changes, that you don't need to create a resource and then assign permissions to, think of a way, guys, like suppose you have got like 100 users. The moment you create one table, like in a resource-based access control, the moment you create one table, for those 100 users, you have to assign the permissions for this table. Yeah, but in this tag-based access control, you can define a policy tag, and for that policy tag, you can configure data access for these 100 users. It's a one-time job done. After that, when you are launching a new data lake resource, like table or database or column, you are simply attaching that to a policy tag, and based on the policy tag the resource is attached, the data access is enforced, because your policy tags have been granted data access permissions. Okay, so let's try to understand this with one example, and then of course we also have a hands-on lab towards the end. So let's take a scenario that you defined a policy tag first, and this is like this is like an organization where we have primarily two teams, sales teams and customers team. So I started defining policy tag, and it's a free key value pair. So I said my department is sales team and my department is customer service. And then I also want a tag all access, because this is for those people who probably wants to have access everywhere. And then I assign data permission for these policy tags. So I can say, okay, fair enough, the department equal to sales team, this policy tag based resources will be accessible only from the sales group. Yeah. Similarly, the resources which have got the policy tag department equal to customer service will be accessible only from the customer group. And then you define third data permission, saying that whatever resources has got all access equal to true, they will simply have like your sales group and customers group will have access, both will have access to those resources. So you defined three policy tags, and for these three policy tags you define the data permission. For one policy tag the sales group have access, for other policy tag your customer group has access, and for third policy tag both sales and customer group have access. Now this is a one-time configuration, or like let's say it less frequently, less frequently configured thing you did. And then after that you start launching or start creating your data lake resources. So you created an ordered table, orders table, and this orders table has got a policy tag associated, department equal to sales team. Then your leads table got department equal to sales team. Then we got a customers table which has got department equal to customer service, and it has another tag which is all access equal to true. Then you say your tickets table where the department is equal to customer service, and then we got one opportunities table where department is equal to sales team. So you see we are launching, like in this example, 5 different tables, creating 5 different tables, and each one has got certain policy tags attached. Now based on this policy tag attached actually, and based on the data permissions defined in this policy tags over here, these user groups, sales group and customer group, will automatically get access to these tables. So for instance, in this example, your sales group will automatically get access to orders table, leads table, customers table, and opportunities table, because these three have got department equal to sales team as the policy tags, and for that sales group has got access, and this one has got all access equal to true as a policy tag, and again for that also sales group has got access. So simple, I just created the resources, attached that with a policy tag, and based on the policy tag attached or associated, this sales group automatically gets access. And now if we talk about the customers group, they automatically get access to both customers and tickets table, because in case of tickets table, department is equal to customer service, and in this case, by this virtue of having department equal to customer service, the customer group get access. And in other case, it says department is customer service and all access also equal to true, and again this gives customer group the access. So that's how this whole tag based access control works, that you define your policy tag. Probably you have to do a lot of thinking in terms of defining your policy tags to cover the entire organizations and your operations and the way you want to control the access. It needs a little thinking, of course, but after that, once you have defined the policy tag and you have attached data permissions, then your job is pretty much simplified, because you simply keep creating your resources within your data lake and keep attaching that to a policy tag, and policy tag will make sure that your data permissions are enforced. Okay. So now the question comes is that suppose like people are using lake formation for quite some time now, and you say, you know what, I already have got resource-based access control defined. How do I migrate from resource-based access control to tag-based access control? So how does that migration look like? So suppose in this example, like you have got a data lake configured where you have resources like database, tables, and columns, and some resource level permission is already configured for your users. Now you want to migrate to tag-based access control. So how would that work? So let's try to understand that part. Good news is that your sorry. The good news is that your resource level permissions and your tag-based access control permissions both can coexist. So what you can do is that you can define your policy tags. You can define permissions for your policy tags, and then you can also update policy tags for data lake resources. So you can do these three activities, and so far you have not disturbed anything from your resource-based access control. Now, if you see over here, this data lake resource now has got resource like your access control defined in two ways. It has a resource level access permission defined, and it has also got a tag level access permission defined, because both can exist. So you can simply implement your tag level access control without disturbing your existing resource level access control. And then after that, you can simply remove your resource level access control without disturbing anything, because you already have a tag level access control in place. So even if you remove this thing, actually, your data access control is still enforced, because your tag level access control is already defined in parallel. So what it will do now, that you can remove your resource level access control, and your access control to your resources are still enforced using policy tags. Now the next step could be is that you actually update your deployment, because so far you have been creating the resources like database or tables or columns, but you have not been associating any policy tags to that. You're simply creating the resource and then probably using some other script or command line or through console, you have been granting access to resource label for the users or the roles or the groups. But now you have to change your deployment. The way you have to change your deployment is that now when you create your resource, you also configure your policy tags so that based on the policy tags permissions defined over here, you automatically get the access control enforced on your data lake resources. So this is how you can migrate from, if you are already using lake formation and you have resource-based access control and you want to migrate to tag-based access control, this is how you can do. So having talked about that, what we are going to build today, so I have already created a workshop long time back, and that workshop helps you configure a data lake based out of S3. We are simply going to use that data lake, but in this time and then in that data lake, when we created last time the whole workshop, it was resource-based access control. Now we are going to simply use that workshop, but the change will be that this time we will use tag-based access control. Okay. In order to do this scenario, we have created one exercise. The URL of the exercise is also provided in the description box below. You can simply follow this exercise and can go step-by-step process to understand how to configure tag-based access control in Lake Formation. Let me walk you through. In fact, I'm going to configure the whole. So I have already got a data lake set up. using the previous workshop which I have shared long time back actually. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to configure tag based access control into that to show how exactly the configuration works. So without wasting any more time, let's jump to the our AWS console. But before that, just to show you that in our exercises, we have got AWS Lake Formation tag-based access control. And in this one, actually, you can see that it uses one of the previous workshops to first configure a data lake, and then you can go through the rest of the process to configure the tag-based access control. So let's do it. So here is my lake formation where I have one database. It is called DojoDB, and then in that DojoDB I have got a table. Two tables, in fact, sales and customers is a table, and both are actually sourcing data from S3, and data is the CSV format. If I need to enforce any tag-based access control, first I need to define my policy tags. So I go to my policy tags menu option and say I want to add a tag. And one tag I want to add is called say department, and the value is say sales team, and the second one is say customer service. Yeah, so I added I added two tags over here. Let me add one more tag, and this tag I'm going to use with my database, because the user also needs to have access to database in order to query data. So I will say this could be a DB access, and then I can say simply true, nothing more than that. So I have got my two tags defined. One is department, which is having two values, which has two values, customer service and sales team, and then I got one DB access tag, which I'm going to use for database level access for the users. Now, after I have defined this, I now need to define data permissions for these tags. So I can go to data permissions and say I want to grant data permissions. So the first one is I want to grant access for the customers users. And this customers users should, and then you can see here now you have got two options, whether you want to go for resource-based access control, or you want to go, resource-based or tag-based access control. So you simply add here, select your tag-based, and then a policy tag-based, and then you simply click on the add tag. So the customer has got access to, customers will have access to all those resources where department is customer service. So you can simply department, and this is customer service. And then I can give both database and table level permission, and in this case it is more relevant for table level because I want to give access to customers table. So I simply say you have select and describe permission on that, and I grant it. So once that is granted, now I can say I want to grant another access. In this case, I select my sales user, and actually sales user, in my policy tags, I can say my department is equal to sales team. Okay, so where department is equal to sales team, for that I want to give a table label permission saying that this also have a select and describe option. Granted. So I have defined two user permissions, one for my customers table, one for my sales team tag, and one for my customer service tag. Now I want to give another permission that is more for database, and this I want to give to both sales and customer users so that they can see the database as well. So I add my customers users here and my sales user, both I add over here, and I simply say in my tags I want DB access true, and this will have database label permission, and I just want describe permission because so that person can see the database. Yeah, and I grant it. So I have granted permissions for my policy tags. Now, in fact, I can go to my policy tags. I can click on my tag policy, and it should show me. Yeah, okay. There's no. I thought probably there's an option to see the data permission, tag permissions. I think I can click over here to see my tag permissions. So you can see here. I can click over here to see some of my tag permissions. But anyway, I can see the resources associated with tags, but not the permissions here actually. For that, actually, I have to go to data permissions. I can go to data permissions here, filter on my resource type, and if I see that your policy tag expression, you can see here these users has been granted access to database and tables. Okay, now let's start assigning. So now my policy tag is defined. My data permission for the policy tag is defined. Now I can start associating my policy tag to different data lake resources. So first one I want to do is DojoDB. Now database, I want both to have describe access. So in this case, I simply go to my database. I want to edit the tags, and I want the policy which I want to associate is database access and equal to true. Yeah, simply. So by giving this database access equal to true policy tag here, all I'm saying is that my sales user and my customer user both now have got describe access to my database. As simple as that. Then if I go to my tables and I go to my first table, sales, here I will simply attach my policy tag to the sales table. So I go all the way down to the sales table and I go to my policy tags and say, yep, I want to give it an access, assign. So it inherits something from database as well, but simply say, okay, I want to give it access to department is sales. This is for sales table, right? Yeah, okay. So sales table, that's to verify, very sure. So this is a sales table. Yeah, so sales table, I simply edit, and I simply say I want to add a new policy tag. My department is sales team, save. So now my department, by now my sales user have also got select access to this table. Now I can simply go back to tables again, and I can say let's go to the customers, and in this case I again come all the way down to the policy tag section and say I want to add a new tag, and this new tag is department equal to customer service, and save it. Yeah, so department equal to customer service. Now if I go to my policy tags and if I click on, for instance, department, I can see that these are the access permissions which are defined on my resources. You can see that the customer service, the sales has got this sales team thing, and customer has got this customer service team, and then based on that, actually my even it shows the column level details as well, because we selected the all column in this case. So you can see that it has both have access now. So it is now time to test our configuration. So what I will do is that now I will log out and log in back as a sales user, and we'll see if sales user has got permissions to the sales table only or not. Okay, so I am in as a sales user, and if I go to my Lake Formation, I can and if I go to my databases, I can see my DojoDB as a database. If I go to my tables, I can see only sales as a table to me, because as a sales user I have access only to sales database, and of course I can then make query to this table as well. Let me log out and logging back as a customer service user to see if that permission also works for. Okay, so now I have logged in back as a customer service user, and if I go to my Lake Formation, again I go to my databases, and you can see that I can see my database, and if I go to my table, I can see only customers as a table. And this also applies to my query because I have got select permission. So describe permission gives me I can see the schema details and a table listed over here. But if I simply say I want to view my data, and it will take me to Athena. In Athena, yeah, you can see here that it shows me my table as well. So you can see here that how we use tag-based access control to define access to data lake resources. Here in this case, it was particularly an example with database and a table. And that pretty much finishes this exercise, guys. Hope you like it. And if you like, please click on the like button and please subscribe to my channel. There are many other similar workshops and exercises which you can use to learn about AWS services. These exercises and workshops are published to our website aws-dojo.com. So please do visit our website and learn about AWS services. We always look forward to your feedback for any new content, or if we have made any mistake, or if you want to discuss something related to one of our video. If you have any follow-up questions or any problem or any scenario you want to discuss, you can always provide your comments in the YouTube channel, or you can also click on the Contact Us tab over here and can provide feedback from there as well. We always look forward to your feedback for improvement, for new content, to make our channel better for you. So look forward to hearing from you. I promise to come back again in a week's time with another such video and tutorial. In the meantime, stay safe and have a nice day. Bye-bye.